Welcome to Gracefully Graying. I am co-founder Lori Bloom. Explore a platform of tips, trends, news, and informative discussions for you and your loved ones. Whether you're 50 and over or way over, find us on gracefullygraying.com, YouTube, and social media. Enjoy this live stream discussion. Welcome to Gracefully Graying live stream. Today we are thrilled to have LaToya Hall from the SAFE program, actually the program director of SAFE at Wayne State University in Detroit, Michigan. So LaToya, welcome to Gracefully Graying.
Thank you, Lori.
It's always great to have you guys with us. I know you talk about some important stuff for seniors. And the topic today is protecting seniors from financial abuse. So first of all, what is your background, LaToya, and what spurred your interest in delving into financial elder abuse?
Well, I am an MSW. I started off studying for my MSW, studying asset building. And MSW stands for Master of Social Work. So I started studying asset building kind of like as an approach to anti-poverty. So always the financial question with vulnerable populations. I started helping high school students to save for college and helping them with financial education. Then I moved on to start in domestic violence. And it was helping women to reestablish financially after they got out of abusive situations. A lot of people don't realize that a large part of domestic abuse is financial. And so I would help them to reestablish themselves financially. And then I came over to working at the Institute of Gerontology at Wayne State and started transferring the domestic abuse skills to elder abuse. A lot of those skills go hand in hand. So we started doing the financial elder abuse. I started doing the financial elder abuse work here using my skill set from financial abuse within domestic violence.
Okay. So SAFE is an acronym. What is SAFE? What does it stand for? And tell us about that program.
So SAFE is an acronym for Successful Aging Through Financial Empowerment. It's a four-part program, really. So we do community education for older adults on protecting themselves from being the victims of scams and identity theft, how to address being victimized, what you should do. We also provide community education to caregivers. So caregivers of anyone over 65 with cognitive issues, or even someone who's anticipating being a caregiver one day. We provide community education to them on how to properly manage someone else's finances, what to do when you are put in that role as a financial caregiver, how to even approach that conversation. We know sometimes that conversation can be very difficult, going to a loved one and saying, I think you need help with your financial management, because finances is such a taboo topic. And so we provide community education to caregivers on financial gerontology issues, so to speak. And then we also provide one-on-one support, advocacy and financial coaching support to older adults and caregivers. Older adults who just need assistance with financial management, setting up budgets, possibly taking care of credit issues. Definitely, if you found yourself a victim of a scam or identity theft and you need help navigating how to get things around that resolved. And then for caregivers, all of those same services. And then also, if caregivers need assistance with providing financial management, say, once you are appointed conservator by the court, you have to reconcile every year. So I'll get caregivers who will call and it's their first year reconciling. And so I walk through that process with them of what to do and how to complete those forms and get them back to the court. And then also if caregivers have their own financial management issues, we assist them with those because we feel like that's a huge part of managing caregiver burden, is making sure that the caregiver's finances are intact as well. And then there's also a research portion. We are primarily a research institute at the Institute of Gerontology. And so we study everything we do. And so we do a large portion of research on the efficacy of the program.
So you have all the stats and everything to back all of this up,
Yes,
obviously,
yes, we
which is
have.
great. Yeah,
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 we have stats and studies. I think using the data from the SAFE program.
yeah.
So far, there have been 4 or 5 papers. Definitely an introductory paper, a follow-up paper, and then we have some other papers that we have done, one on financial resources and stressors and how they impact financial vulnerability, and then another one we use a large African American sample to look at the mental health effects of financial exploitation on African American populations.
And well, let me ask you about that specifically. Is that just because Wayne State University is in Detroit? Is that just in the Detroit area, or is that nationwide, or what?
Most of our sample is in this area for those first papers. We used a lot of pre-COVID data. And so we didn't only cover Detroit or even the Metro Detroit area. We actually did Wayne, Oakland, Macomb, which is the Metro Detroit area,
Yeah.
but we were also open to Washtenaw and Livingston counties. So we
Okay.
have participants from those areas. However, due to COVID, we have taken our services virtual. So we have people from as far away as Florida coming into the program, and we collect data on all of our program participants. So some of our future papers will have respondents and participants from farther away.
Okay. Um, so, what are some common forms of financial elder abuse that you see in the SAFE program?
Yeah. So we do get a lot of people call us about abuse by family members and people that they know. And so when you think about elder abuse, a lot of people tend to think about that. And so we do get a lot of that. But then we also get a lot of people who call about scams and identity theft. And people, may often wonder, like, well, how is that elder abuse, being that this is abuse by strangers? And it is elder abuse because people actually target older adults because they are older, and so they know some of the things that can make an older adult more vulnerable or more susceptible to falling for a scam or being a victim of a scammer. And so they play on those things and they target older adults. And so it is elder abuse, even though anyone can be a victim of scam or identity theft. The moment that someone begins to target people because they are older, I know we don't use phone books anymore, but something that will give you an idea of what I'm talking about is people were in the past known for getting phone books or lists with phone numbers, and they would go through the names and look and see which name sounds like an older adult. So it would be, LaToya, Nicole, Stephanie, Gertrude. I'm going to call Gertrude. People know older adults sometimes have cognitive issues that may make them more susceptible to falling for a scam. They know that there's a large portion of social isolation and loneliness that goes with aging. And so sometimes older adults may be lonely, they may be isolated, they may want someone to talk to. People play on that. So people play on a lot of issues that come along with aging to target older adults because they know that those are vulnerabilities.
Right, right. So, I know you mentioned family members, you mentioned caregivers. Who else commits financial elder abuse?
Anyone, family members,
Sure.
caregivers,
Yeah.
friends, strangers. I've seen people that people have met at church, that they've met at work, that, it's just, so I don't think it's a question of who, it's a question of, being aware of who's around you and people's characters and the qualities and red flags. Because anyone, a neighbor, anyone can do it.
Right. And so are there differences between financial elder abuse committed by loved ones versus by strangers? Do you see different patterns?
Yeah, and so that's actually the latest paper that we're working on that's not published, but that's a publication that will be forthcoming very soon, that we are in the final stages of drafting. We took a sample of older adults who were victimized by family members and friends, trusted others, so to speak. And then we compared it to a sample of older adults who were victimized by strangers. Now, we found some very interesting things in our comparison, but also in the literature. Something that's interesting that really matched our comparison is that when someone is victimized by a close loved one, friend, family member, someone that they know and trust very well, that they tend to lose more money. So, family members or trusted others tend to steal more money because they have more access.
Yeah.
Something else that we also know is it it's interesting. So something that's found in the literature is that it depends with the family members. There's a large impact on the functionality of the family, and you wouldn't expect it, but dysfunctional families actually have less financial exploitation within the family because they're not as close. They're not as
Oh,
close to
interesting.
get close to that person to be able to steal money from that person, which is very interesting. We also found that older adults who were victims of exploitation by family members, they tend to be those with less functional ability. So
Say that again.
they tend to be those with less functional ability, meaning
Okay.
they tend to be those who are more dependent on family members for what we call instrumental activities of daily living. So
Yeah.
there are those older adults who need someone to come in and help them with things like keeping the house, with
Right.
preparing their meals, with getting dressed. So the more dependent someone is on
Mm-hmm.
someone, the more likely it is that they may be victimized by someone that they know and trust, as opposed to older adults who are victimized by strangers.
Yeah.
These are sometimes very high functioning
Yeah.
people. And it's because of that reason that they don't kind of like use those networks for someone to say, hey, that's a red flag, because they're
Right.
high functioning. Yeah.
Right, right. Yes, and right, like you said, the more low functioning, the more vulnerable they are. Yeah. Any tips for prevention? What advice do you offer?
Well, for prevention, there's quite a few things I probably could go on and on. So, I generally tell people, so when we see more of the scams, we do notice with older adults, we know that anyone can be scammed, right? But
Yeah.
we notice with different age groups and different subsets of the population, there are different initial points of contact. Right. So with younger people, usually the point of contact is over the computer. It's some type of social
Hmm.
media. In older adults are contacted like that, but it's not the most prevalent. The most prevalent initial point of contact with older adults is the phone.
Is what?
The
Yeah,
phone calls.
yeah,
So you know how we get those scam likely phone calls, or
for
those
sure.
phone calls from people. So I usually tell people the biggest prevention topic that I have for that is don't answer. We have caller ID. Try
Yeah.
not to answer calls from numbers that you don't know.
Hmm.
Let them go to your voicemail. Let your voicemail screen those calls.
Hmm.
Because people will say, well, I answered, but I didn't give them any money. Sometimes they're not looking for money. They're trying to get information. They're doing what we call phishing. So
Yeah.
they're, casting this reel, and they're asking you these questions, and they're seeing what money, what information they could collect, because their
Hmm.
goal is identity theft.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not really to get you to give them money immediately. It's to get information so that they can get into your bank accounts or your credit cards, or even use your identity to assume different goods and merchandise. Okay. So you want to really be careful with answering and talking. And then another thing is, once you answer, you go on what they call a lead list. You know how businesses have lead lists? Well,
Yeah.
the scammers have lead lists. So the more calls you answer, whether they get anything from you or not, the more calls you're going to get. And so people
Hmm.
will say, I'm on the do not call registry. And I'll tell people that the do not call registry works, but it doesn't necessarily work to stop scam phone calls. Okay.
Uh-huh.
So the
Uh-huh.
do not call registry works for um, telemarketers, but scammers aren't telemarketers, right?
Right. Good
They're
point.
already breaking the law.
Hmm.
They don't care about a registry that the FTC has put into place, right?
Uh-huh.
And they don't have access to it anyway. Like, I'm not a legitimate telemarketer. I don't even have access, so I don't know
Right.
on that registry. So I'll tell people how the do not call registry work. I definitely recommend going on there. But how it works is, if you go on that do not call registry and you're still getting telemarketer calls, you can be 99.9% sure that those calls are scammers. So if you're on the do not call registry and you're still seeing telemarketing calls,
Yeah.
you can almost be sure that those are scammers, right? And
Right.
so that's where you know kind of like not to answer. Another tip for prevention for, the exploitation by strangers or identity theft is you need to be checking your credit report at least once a year. A lot of, older adults will, say they're not using credit. They have their car, they have their house, they have all the credit cards that they
Yeah.
need, and they don't really check their credit reports as often as they should. But I frequently tell people just because you're not using your credit, that really doesn't mean that no one else isn't. And
Yeah,
so,
that's a scary thought.
yeah. And so if you
Yeah.
go on www.annualcreditreport.com, I'm going to say that again, www.annualcreditreport.com. That is the government designated website where you can get a free copy of your credit report at least once a year. And you actually get 3 free copies because you get one from each credit bureau. You get one from TransUnion,
Right.
Equifax, and Experian. And with that, that's the best way to watch for identity theft. Sometimes people will call you about debts, but sometimes, someone can have something in your name for years and you'll never know. And until you get that credit report and say, wait a minute, I don't have a car with Credit Acceptance Corporation.
Right.
I had a car with him. Then why is this repo here?
Yeah.
You would never know. So it's a good idea to check that credit.
Yeah. That's great advice. And we will post that on our site, in general, but that's really, really great advice. I think a lot of people don't know about that.
Don't know about that. Yeah. I wanna say, because I went over, those are some good prevention tips on how to protect yourself from identity theft. But then I want to talk about, with caregivers and trusted others. And
Yeah.
so if you have someone coming into your home to provide services and care for you, make sure you're locking up your important documents. You are, keeping those things out of reach. If you have someone who you actually share financial information with because they're doing your shopping and they're doing think about setting up alerts on your phone to where every time they use a card or something that you've authorized them to use, you get an alert telling you where they spent it at and how much they spent. That way you can track it. Make sure you're looking over your bank records and you're
Right.
logging in to see your charges and making sure you're really tracking like what that person is doing, especially if you've given them access to use some of your accounts.
Right.
And
But
then
here's my question, LaToya, because a lot of seniors get nervous about, using the mobile app for banking, which is so convenient these days. I mean, like, which is great. Like, you really never have to go to the bank.
yes.
But I feel like seniors have that hurdle to get over to actually install the app on the phone and then use it. And, that's when you're going to get alerts like, somebody spent or you were charged X number of dollars. So it's that first step of getting that app on your phone first.
Yeah. That is the first step. I highly suggest it. It is safe. I generally, when I talk to people about signing up for online accounts and apps and things, I talk to them about the importance of not sharing passwords.
Yeah.
A lot of people will say, well, I don't want my information online. And I tell people, and I know it sounds, but all of your information is already online anyway. Really, anytime you talk to someone from a business or anywhere nowadays, they're sitting up typing something into a computer. So it's not in a lot of ways that this goes is your name is in the computer with the business or organization, and then that gets hacked into and someone gets your information. So setting up the online accounts and mobile apps is really, then it becomes a question of protecting your login.
Yeah.
But if you don't want to set up the apps and get the notifications, you can get a paper bank statement once a month from your bank. At least open that up and check and make sure. So there are ways to check and make sure. It's not as convenient. You can't do it as often, but you at least need to be looking at that once a month for your
It's something.
bank accounts. And then another thing, if you're thinking about, power of attorneys, this is really important. And all of us should be thinking about having power of attorney for finances and healthcare in place. For your finances, something that I generally tell people is that if you're thinking about appointing someone for as power of attorney for your finances, even if you're in good cognitive shape now, it's something that you want to do because you may need it in the past. Try to appoint someone that you really trust. Try
Yeah.
to appoint someone of good character. Try to stay away from people with substance abuse issues,
Mhm.
alcohol related issues, gambling problems. Those are kind of like obvious, but then also people who are bad at managing their own finances.
Yeah.
Okay. And then also think about putting a clause in that power of attorney where there may be someone else in the family who they have to check in with every 6 months or quarterly or so. Because
Right. Kind of as a counterbalance.
yeah, kind of
Yeah.
like as a counterbalance, because
Yeah.
then if you're not in the cognitive shape to go behind them, there's
Mhm.
someone who can kind of like keep them checks and balances, right? And so
Mhm.
you definitely want to, think about those things, now while you're in good cognitive shape,
Yeah.
because, being that if you aren't, I generally tell people, if you aren't, don't have power of attorneys in place, think about the people who you definitely would not want managing your money or your healthcare decisions under any circumstance,
Yeah.
and know that that could very well wind up being the person who does that for you if
And
you
yeah.
don't make your choice now while you
Mhm.
have the ability to do so.
Mhm.
So, you want to think about getting those documents in place, and then also think about those checks and balances. And then another thing is don't add people to your bank account. A lot of people, as they age,
Mhm.
they think it's a good idea to add a child or someone as a co-owner. But once you add someone as a co-owner to your bank account, they are just that, a co-owner.
Yeah.
And so they own that money just like you do. So it's not like I just added them to my bank account to help me manage my finances. It's saying that they own your money. Couple
Yeah.
of things could happen. They could go in there, and if there's $20,000 in that account, they could wipe that account out for $20,000, and there's nothing you would be able to do about it because they were a co-owner. Okay. And then also, if they have large debts and things that they get sued for and their judgments against them being a co-owner on your account, someone could come after your money to satisfy their debt. A good thing to think about is that if you appoint someone as your power of attorney and set things in place with your bank while you're cognitively intact, that
Mhm.
person could be on your account and they can sign on that account as representative or agent under power of attorney. Okay. And then also, if you're thinking about, in the case of death, this is who I want to have this money go to. You don't have to make them a co-owner on that account. Just make them a beneficiary, just like you would do on any insurance policy. Your
Yeah.
bank has a space for you to appoint beneficiaries to bank accounts.
Yeah. All really great advice. Really great. So, what should someone do if they find themselves as a victim of financial elder abuse? I mean, what if something happens? What
So
should they do?
the first thing you should do is call the SAFE program. And so we can help you get started to know what to do, what steps to
Hmm.
take. You can contact us. All of our services are free of charge. We don't charge you anything. We're totally grant funded.
Yeah.
If you have mailings and things like that, you'll have to provide the payments for those or court fees or anything. But as far as SAFE services, we can provide you with those services. Another thing, depending on what's going on, I always say contact the authorities. So always contact your local police department. I get a lot of people, they'll call
Right.
me and I say, "Did you make a police report yet?" And they'll say no. So it is something you need to do, whether it's a scam, it's a friend or family member, it's a identity theft,
Hmm.
anything like that. Making a police report is always a good idea.
Hmm.
Sometimes you get the police departments, depending on where you are and how large the department is and whatever their problems in the community. You may get a little pushback, but inform them that you want this report, that even though they may not have time to investigate, you want this report so you can have things documented. I mean, an example is I had a case where a man was a victim of a sweetheart scam. And the
Yeah.
sweetheart scam, we call that when you meet someone and they act like they're a new girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever.
Uh-huh.
And this person told him that they wanted to buy property with him in Florida, right?
Ooh.
And so they were trying to buy this property, and then he was going to move to Florida and they were going to live in the property together. Well, this person had him send them $60,000. But then they also had another person who was a victim to send him $20,000, which he forwarded the full 80,000 to the scammer. being that this scam happened, neither one of them got their money back. He didn't file a police report. The
Wow.
person who forwarded him the 20,000 filed a police report and then sued him because he was the person who they sent the money to, right?
Wow.
So he didn't have anything on record saying that he was a victim of the scam as well. So that's one of the first things that we did when he called me, because you want to be able to have documentation that you're a victim of a scam. Sometimes I've seen people's social security checks rerouted, and they don't file with the police department or file reports or anything, and then they'll call Social Security and get another check. But then Social Security, sometimes they may have a glitch in the system. I've seen people be penalized for that second check and tell that they owe it.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah. And they had that police report to say, no, this was a scam. I talked to you. This is who I talked to. Here's the police report. You always want to document.
Yeah. And honestly, a lot of communities have investigators. Like that's what they do. That's their sole job. And I've actually talked to a few and on certain occasions, and it's like a whack-a-mole thing where it just kind of keeps happening. But it's a good tool.
Yep. So you'll get people who, they're not going to do anything. You want to report to your local police. You want to make an FTC fraud report. You want to, the FBI, if it happened over the internet, they have an internet crime division. Even if, you don't think you should report because they're not going to get your money back, it's just important to document these things, because if things come up as a result, you'll need that documentation to address other issues in the future.
Right. Okay. So we're running out of time, but I feel like we could talk a lot longer. But so tell us again, how can people get a hold of you at SAFE?
Okay, so I'm sorry.
That's okay.
So my name is LaToya Hall. I'm at the Wayne State University Institute of Gerontology. The program is Successful Aging Through Financial Empowerment. You access SAFE, you can send me an email at l.hall@wayne.edu, or you can give me a call at 313-664-2608. So if you're an older adult or a caregiver who needs one-on-one services, reach out. I generally tell people, if it's an issue, even if you think it's not something that I can help with, call me, let me triage it. If it's something that I can help with, I'm going to offer you services. If not, we have lots of friends of the IOG who we can refer to. And then also we do presentations on community education for older adult audiences and caregivers. And so if you have audiences that you think could benefit from a free presentation on scams, identity theft.
Yeah, good point.
Someone else's money, how to approach those difficult conversations, the IOG is available to nonprofits for those free presentations.
Okay, yeah, that's a very good point. And again, we're going to put all this stuff on our website, all this information. It's just so very helpful. So LaToya, we really thank you for coming on and joining us on Gracefully Graying live stream. Thank you. And to our viewers, visit gracefullygraying.com. And thank you to all of our sponsors. And again, LaToya, thanks. And we'll have you on again because there's so much to talk about.
Thank you.